good afternoon and welcome to our DMAC and Build University event. Thank you all for tuning in. We are excited to have home building professionals here with us today on our panel. And our hope really with these events are that they're linking your career interests to professionals working in those industries right here in Iowa. So before we get started, I would just like to say a quick hello. My name is Jill Hoyk. I work a part of the work-based learning team here at DMAC. And so again, thank you all for being here today. And I would also like to mention that DMAC does have several building trades and construction programs, some of which will be discussed today as far as different programs that you can go into in order to land a career in this field. So for those of you interested, I will leave program information in the chat too as well. But without further ado, I first of all want to thank all of the professionals on the call today. We truly appreciate you giving us your time to learn a little bit more about your profession, so thank you. But I'm gonna hand it over to Brandon Patterson. He is gonna be our moderator for today's panel, and Brandon is a part of the workforce development for the Home Builders Association of Des Moines. So with that, Brandon, thank you for being here too as well, and I will hand it on over to you.
Thanks, Jill. Yeah, we wanted to take the time to talk about something that seems like we maybe have skipped over because we always get into individual specific trades. So today I wanted to talk more about, in broad terms, the home building industry in general, and brought in three professionals that have been in different parts of this and represented the home building part of this for a lot of years altogether. So I want to start with how they look on my screen as far as letting them tell their intro, and then we'll go from there. So we're going to start with Kaylin.
And just a little background on who I am and how I got into it. Exactly. All right. Well, Kaylin Ludwig, I'm with Groundbreaker Homes. I am from Pella, Iowa, went to University of Northern Iowa. I majored in marketing and kind of randomly fell into a minor in real estate. And that is kind of how I got into my career. My grandparents really helped shape me too. My grandpa was a carpenter. They flipped a lot of houses. My grandma was very into interior design. They owned a couple motels. And so I just always definitely followed them around, really enjoyed their career, and was always wanting to go to open houses and things like that with them. So when I graduated college, I had actually gotten my real estate license my senior year in high school, sold one house, or I'm sorry, senior year in college, sold one house and kind of got addicted from there. My first about 8-10 years in the business, I was a realtor, and I was doing resales and also representing several local builders. The more I got into new construction and development, I just really knew I had found my niche, and a couple years ago ended up being a partner in Groundbreaker Homes.
Dan, what about you?
My path was a little different than Kaylin's. I was in the service for 6 years, got out, and my first semester of college was my wife's last semester of college. We grew up in Northwest Illinois. She got offered a job here, so we moved to Des Moines in 1994. And I was formally trained and fixed electronic systems for 6 years. And I couldn't get a job because I didn't have a piece of paper saying that I knew how to do the job. So by default, I didn't want to go back to school. We wanted to start a family and do those things in life. So I picked up a hammer and I learned a trade. I started framing with no knowledge and no tools. And within a year, I was running a crew for that, for the framing contractor that I was working for. Did that for about a year. One of the contractors that I actually framed all of his homes offered me a job, said, you should be doing. So I was able to work my way up, became a job superintendent, ended up building homes for about 23 years. I built about 700 homes over the course of 23 years. And during that time, I was a volunteer leader here at the Home Builders Association, and I kind of understood the role of what we do and what our mission was, and got the opportunity 8 years ago to leave contracting and actually come here full time as the executive officer. So I've been doing that now since 2014.
And Chris, tell us more about you.
Yeah, so my name's Chris Pickard. I'm with Sage Homes. My dad, actually, when I was growing up, he built houses for a local contractor here in central Iowa. After a few years, he was able to start a poured foundation wall company. So from the time I was in high school, I was working for him in the summers doing concrete. I went to college for about a year and a half, decided that ultimately that wasn't the path that I wanted to take. And I went to work at Arby's for a while, rocked the drive-through there. When I met my wife, actually, I didn't want her dad to think I was a deadbeat. So I went back to work pouring concrete for a number of years. Just showed up every day, tried to do my best. Eventually, I moved on from that into for a large local home builder, and that was in, I believe, 2012. Did that for a couple of years before I was offered the opportunity to start my own thing. So in 2014, started Sage Homes, and we've been fortunate enough to kind of grow that here over the last 8 years into what it is today.
Like all three of you have been through different parts of this process, but for maybe those that don't know, and I'm going to start with Kaylin, what's it take to start a home building company? Because I think that a lot of people might have a different idea about what it takes and like maybe certain degrees that you need to have or certain licenses that you need to have if you're a general contractor or something like that. What does it actually take to become a home builder in Iowa?
So you do not need to have a college degree necessarily or any kind of license, I would say. My background being more on the brokerage side and marketing side, I would say we probably started Groundbreaker Homes from a little different perspective than a lot of people that I know. A lot of people have a story more like Chris or Dan, where they were in the trades and decide, and worked for somebody else and then decide to go out on their own. How we kind of got into it was more on the development side. So my coworkers and boss was developing land, and it was recession time, and so we wanted to build some houses in our developments to kind of spur that momentum. And so we really came from a marketing company and created a home building side of our company versus being in the trades and going that route. So I definitely think that I probably started quite differently in some degrees than most the other builders that I know, but no, you don't necessarily need a bunch of certificates or license or degrees. I know a lot of people they've got the tools and the truck and that's kind of how they get into it. For us, we didn't know how to build a house. We just knew how to marketing side. So we hired a project manager that had experience in that and were able to get up and going from that.
And Chris, how did it start for you?
So I was approached by a guy that I had worked for previously, and he was kind enough to put a little bit of money in an account for us to borrow against to build a couple of spec homes. As Kaylin said, we don't need a whole lot of specific licensing here in Iowa. $50 contractor ID and you're good to go. That being said, I think we do have one of the longer statutes in Iowa here for how long we are liable for that project. So you got to know what you're doing. Like I said, I was a project manager for a larger company, so I had cut my teeth already on the processes and what needed to be done. So when we were able to get that financing secured, it was just putting up a couple of spec homes. In marketing, like Kaylin mentioned, definitely plays into it heavily for us. We got our first home finished in November in 2014, going into that first winter we were in business. And we did not sell it, which at the time was pretty tough, but that turned out to be really good for us. We were able to hold it open all winter and talk to people, interact with potential customers, and really hit the ground running come spring with a lot of folks who wanted to build a new home from the ground up with us.
And then Dan, how did it look for you?
Well, I started my business on the front end of the recession. The company I was working for, the bank decided to get out of construction lending. So they ended up pulling their line of credit. So the amount of money that they operate the business on went away. And I left on the front end of that started my own business basically out of necessity because we didn't have a way to pay bills. Nobody was growing, no one was expanding. Yet I had a big base of customers that really still wanted to build homes, and I had relationships with them. And I would say that that's one of the key things I think in this business is building those relationships. It doesn't matter whether it's the concrete contractor or your electrician, the person you buy lumber from. These are the people that we rely on every day. So all of these people were supportive of me. I'm guessing Chris and Kaylin would both say that same exact thing. And they're really pushing for us to try to move forward and say, we want to work for you. We would love to help you build these homes. Let's start. So sometimes it's prodding from a different angle. Right now, the money is not as big of a key issue as it has been at times. But you do have to have some money. You have to have wherewithal. But those relationships and those connections, I would tell any student watching this to build relationships through college, after college, instead of college, throughout your life. And just don't be afraid to ask questions, because those are the ways that you're going to learn, and you're going to put yourself in a position that you can do whatever you want to do, if it's building or whether it's someday trying to get a job at DMAC.
You guys have kind of both mentioned, or all mentioned a little bit about this, but Dan, I'm going to stay with you. What's the difference between maybe like if somebody says, a spec home or speculative home versus like a custom home? And those are two different types of builders, sometimes completely, where some will only build one or the other. Can you explain more about that?
Sure. Yeah. And you are right. They are completely different. And I would even extend that to say remodeling contractors are different than home builders. The way that they approach what they do. We have some builders in town that don't want a buyer involved until the home is done. And we have some builders in town that don't want to start a home unless there's a buyer connected to it. And it clearly takes different sets of tools. And when I say that, what that means is your innate abilities. You either are good at working with people and kind of going through that process of how do you select the tile and how do you pick the wood for the floors and what's your trim going to look like, or you're not really that great, but you're fantastic at assembling a home. So you really want to find what your niche is and what your abilities are. There are a few people, and I'd say Chris and Kaylin are both this way, that are good at both. They can build a home from start to finish and make great decisions on selections and build something that somebody wants to buy. And then they can also work with a customer. But it's difficult when you get somebody involved and everyone's passionate about not only what they like, but what they're spending their money on. So if you have a buyer, they know what they want, or they don't know what they want, but when they see it, they're going to want to say, well, that's what I'm going to put in my house. And you navigating that path to try to get them from start to finish is very difficult. A speculatively built home is something you would drive by. There's not a for sale sign. There's not a buyer. There's not anything involved until the home is finished. So it's almost like a car or a TV. Once it hits the showroom floor, then that's when the for sale sign goes up. But at that point, it's completely finished. So they're definitely different. I don't know if I fully answered your question, but hopefully I gave some insight there that you were hoping to see.
Yeah. And Chris, kind of to go off that, can you explain the difference between like a general contractor and a subcontractor in the building process?
Yeah. So as far as general contractor, I would look at that as the entity or the folks that are tasked primarily with the management of the construction, the quality control of the construction, making sure things are coming in on budget, on schedule. The subcontractors are the guys that we rely on to specialize in their trade, whether it be the guy doing the driveway, whether it be the folks doing the plumbing, the heating and cooling. We talked earlier about licenses for general contractors. It is very different for plumbers, electricians, and HVAC techs. They have to be very specifically licensed anywhere you go. So we don't have a huge crop of home builders in our area anymore anyway that are kind of self-performing a lot of that stuff. A lot of it is a general contractor who is, again, tasked with that time and monetary management and warranty of the home, and then pulling together that team of qualified professionals to help get it all together and done.
And then on self-performing, you mean basically, the person actually doing the work. So you could be a tradesperson but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a general contractor. You could just be hired by a general contractor to perform that work without truly like owning your own company type of thing.
Right.
Yep. Kaylin, can you explain some of like the home building process as far as like maybe more on the custom side, but just like the process from like lot selection and those types of things all the way to the end, what that would look like for somebody?
Yeah, so our process would be somebody might call you, say, hey, I saw a house you have for sale, or potentially I want to talk about building and what does that all look like. So we talk to them about lot selection. Sometimes they come to us because we own a lot that they are interested in, sometimes not. Floor plan. So we have kind of our floor plans that we offer the public on our website. We also have a whole host of other floor plans that we've built and customized and changed this and that. So I listen to their needs, the client's needs and wants and budget, and kind of help direct them and show them different options. At that point, if they feel comfortable moving forward with kind of an overall budget that we've talked about, floor plan that we've talked about, and they might want to make some customizations, we go ahead and work with a third-party architect that we use to create that plan. We send it, then once we have our plan and what they all kind of high level want in their home, we send that out for bid. That means it goes out to every subcontractor like Chris was mentioning. So the driveway guy, the roofing guy, all the subs that perform work on our house, and they give us estimates of what that work would be. We put it together in a budget and give the homeowner allowances for things that they would choose, just countertops, cabinets, flooring. And then we sign the contract and we get the site plan, we stake it, and we start digging. So that's kind of, that's the part that I really handle in my role of meeting with people, talking about relationships and how important that is, and kind of walking them through that process to get ready to dig. From there, we have a project manager that kind of takes over from scheduling. We have an interior designer that helps them select things, and I kind of stay just as a manager throughout that process.
So kind of going off that, what is the, I know this is, you're all going to laugh when you hear this because you're in the industry, but what's the average length of time that it takes to finish a home right now? And anybody can answer that. And then I have a follow-up.
Yep, I'll go first. I mean, before COVID hit and lots of labor and material shortages and delays, I would say we were building houses around 5 to 6 months from the time we started digging to the time that we were ready to close. Today, it's definitely, we are having delays. Things are taking longer to get. I would say we're more at 7, 8 months. And we just built one larger house that was honestly more like a year. So I just be careful in quoting people timelines in this world today, because things are just evolving and changing, and we don't know what delays will look at. Chris, I'll let you go.
I would concur with what you said. That 4 or 5 month mark typically before COVID was pretty normal. We used to joke, what kind of a clown can't get a house up and built in 120 to 160 days? And man, last year we were that clown every time. So yeah, last year was really bad in, both labor shortages and material delays and shortages. We had numerous ones last year that crossed the 1 year mark. So those times are coming down, at least on our end a little bit. So we're telling folks typically right now from groundbreaking to move in is going to run us somewhere between 6 and 8 months.
Dan, what do you want to add to that?
Well, that kind of goes back to the question you asked last. Is it a speculatively built house, or is it a custom? Because there's a dramatic difference between the two, the swing. So even if you set aside all of those difficulties with getting products and labor shortages, the customer is an X factor that is really a struggle to manage. People that are just purely building spec homes see a lot shorter cycle times on average. So if you're seeing a builder that can build a home in 4 months nowadays, there's typically not a customer involved, where every decision is made before that house is ever started, and then there are no changes. There's no room for changes. So it's tough out there, and it doesn't show a lot of relief in the future.
So one of the number one things that we hear in our industry, and obviously between Iowa Skilled Trades, Build My Future, and the HBA, is, you know, the number one need or problem is workforce. So what would you all say, you know, if you had the right around the workforce, you know, how would that change those lead times or your ability to be more efficient if you had the workforce that you actually needed to fulfill all your jobs?
I will answer a different question and defer that to Kaylin and Chris. What I would say is that any of the students that are listening to this program right now, that the sky is absolutely the limit in our industry right now, and the opportunities are almost endless. For every 5 people that retire from our industry, we're only replacing 1 to 2 of them, depending on whose statistics and data you're looking at. So we have, for every 5 openings, we're only filling 1 or 2 of those jobs. The actual amount of money that you can make is unbelievable. Myself, Kaylin went to college, but the actual training to do what she does now, Chris's training, that didn't cost money. It was all bought with sweat and tears and backbreaking work. I mean, it's not easy, but it is extraordinarily fulfilling, and you can definitely, you can make a great living doing what we're doing. So if you're ever thinking about it, seek more information, because we would love to tell you more about it.
Go ahead, Kaylin.
Yeah, if we had, you know, if we didn't have the labor shortages we're seeing, it would dramatically change a lot about our industry. I know most of the subcontractors we're working with are shorthanded. Their businesses lined up. They can't get to it all. It's just, it's tough. They're all working lots of hours and trying to get to all of us, but there's just not enough people in the field to really make it all work. So I definitely agree with everything Dan said. My kids are 4 and 7, so they're not quite there yet, but I will definitely be, you know, opening up this door to the trades and what it has all the, so many opportunities. And I just think it's something that for years we all thought we have to go to a 4-year school. You have to do this, that, and this. And I think bringing awareness that, you know, that's not necessarily a must to do. There's DMAC has associate programs for 2 years. I don't, you know, and for some people, college isn't the right thing, but that doesn't limit the opportunities that are out there too. We right now, actually, I want to put out a plug. We have an intern that's a construction management and business major at DMAC. He's been with us. His father is one of our bankers, and so he kind of got to know us through that. He has been amazing. He is doing a project management internship, and we really just couldn't say enough about him. I just got an email yesterday from a client that he went and did some touch-ups, did some warranty work, and they just raved about him. And it's just so refreshing to get somebody young and interested and giving it their all. And I just can't say enough for the young people looking to explore the trades.
How about you, Chris?
I think Kaylin and Dan have raised a bunch of good points, and I think the only thing that I can really add, it would absolutely reduce, you know, our construction times, which would be more beneficial for our customer at the end of the day. But I think it deeper than that, you know, one of the things that our subcontractors are faced with right now, because they are so short-staffed, is going with the home builders that are building more than 10 or 15 homes a year. You know, they're having to pick and choose the folks who are going to succeed through this market, essentially. And if we got more help in the trades, I think that would lead to a flourishing of our industry all the way down the line. Because you'd have all sorts of people that can go back to doing just 1 or 2 homes a year. Whereas right now they're just having a really hard time getting that done because there's just not the help out there to get that. And that's going to improve the situation for not only our national housing shortage, but it'll improve the situation for everybody that's in the trades and help lift everybody up into a better lifestyle and better paying job.
One thing I always try to get across to schools or students when I'm talking to them is, when they think about the building industry or construction in general, they generally think of all the jobs we mentioned, which are like the self-performing jobs, the actual tradespeople on the jobs. But can you guys kind of describe maybe some of the opportunities that would be available within your companies? And then Dan, maybe just in association, like with our company, member companies, like those types that would be maybe more of like what would be considered, white collar jobs or something like that. In the office, interior designer or project coordinator, those types of things. So Kaylin, you can go first and kind of explain some of those jobs that would be more of like offsite or onsite, but not the self-performers.
Yeah. So I would say we're about a kind of a medium-sized builder. We're building about 30 to 40 houses a year. So we have one project manager, and I would say we're kind of capped at probably that 40 number with one project manager. So if we were to decide that we wanted to grow and build more houses than that, we would definitely need another project manager or superintendent. Some people call them too. We have an in-house interior designer on our team. So that would definitely be something that people could, consider in the trades. Right now we're hiring for an accounting position. Our current accountant is retiring. So we are looking for that. That job is posted. So if anybody out there watching this knows of somebody looking for an accountant position, that would be amazing to pass that on. Trying to think what else. Estimator, architect. There's just a lot of roles out there that wouldn't necessarily be, using tools and, being a framer, but there's all kinds of roles.
And you could also work yourself up from those areas and go into one of those, maybe higher level jobs too, as well.
For sure. And I mean, I got my start being a real estate agent. So being on the marketing side, brokerage side is also kind of a way in.
Chris, what's a few jobs that you can think of that maybe aren't always highlighted?
I mean, just the positions that we have, Kaylin already touched on estimator, and to expand on your point, Brandon, those are the type of folks that I look at for an estimator position, the folks that have worked their way up because they understand the componentry that goes into what we're trying to put prices together on, which is a hugely beneficial thing, But a lot of the overlooked stuff, Kaylin mentioned accounting. We've got an accountant on staff. We've got a gal in our office that handles our social media and online sales marketing stuff. We are not big enough to have an IT person in-house, but there are some companies that are plenty large to have an IT person in-house. It's amazing how a down printer can really ruin a home building operation for a day, But those are just some of the off the beaten path ones, project superintendents are always in high demand. We have a couple of guys on our staff that just do what we call punch out. They go through, they put cabinet hardware on, they take that home and really put the finishing touches on it for the homeowner. So yeah, the possibilities are really endless outside of even just the core trades that we tend to focus quite a bit on.
Dan, what's some other ones that we're forgetting here?
Some of the ones that I wrote down while they were talking had got mentioned, but project manager, bookkeeper, accountants. We have a lot of people that run numbers, bankers. We talked about design, interior design and CAD. But one of the things Chris hit on a couple times is warranty. There's warranty managers and warranty management companies that do nothing but estimators. There are people that sell insurance. Could be the homeowner's insurance. It could be the builder's risk insurance. So when they're operating their companies, but then sales, there's a ton of different type of sales jobs, not only real estate, like Kaylin is a licensed realtor, but flooring, lumber, you name it, all of these businesses, plumbing supplies. There are a lot of different pieces and parts to every home. So if you walk around your house tonight, somebody sold products that are in your parents' house every single product had someone that was attached to sales. But then on the city side, the city processes permits and they do inspections. The banks have people that go out and do inspections to make sure that the work is done. Chris mentioned IT and realtors. Those are just a few that kind of came to mind while I was sitting here thinking, and these great people were talking. So.
Nope, that's the one that I was going to mention, the city as well.
Hey, Brandon, I just have a quick question.
Sure.
On my end, being in work-based learning and working with high school students, and Brandon, I know that you've probably ran into this too, is I'm just asking about the being 18 as a requirement. Is that for your companies as well? And I guess maybe a little plug, for DMAC is that we do have building trades career academies. And so that allows high school students to get in to building trades and be able to kind of, play around with the idea of that with being under 18. But what would, advice if they weren't 18, would you have for maybe a high school student that can't jump on board yet because of the age requirement? Are there any other things that they could be doing to help set them up?
Brandon, I'll answer if you don't mind. I've seen a lot of high school students get hired across summer jobs, and it's not always glamorous. Might be cleaning up job sites and moving sprinklers, moving furniture, but there are a lot of different things that they can do that still doesn't jeopardize them by putting them in touch with a power tool or get the contractors sideways with their insurance contractor. But there are ways that you can start to work your way in. Every house that Keelan and Chris build, they may be delivering lights and they may be delivering hardware. So that's like doorknobs and door stoppers and things like that. So most of our builders actually hire summer help, and they're usually high school and college kids. So they are 17 and 18. Now, those mechanical trades that Chris mentioned earlier, so the plumbing contractors and the heating contractors, the electricians, it's really hard to get time in trades like that until you're 18. But if you want to get your foot in the door and start to get people to recognize who you are and your work ethic, there are a lot of jobs that can be had in our industry.
That's great. Thank you.
Christine, want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think I don't want to speak for Kaylin, but I'm sure she'll agree with me. Just like Dan said, we bring 2 high school kids on every summer just to sweep floors and move sprinklers. That's all they're doing. There's enough new sod going down that we don't want to die. And to expand on Dan's point about you can't really get that time in electrical and heating and cooling and all that at that age, but just spending time in new construction homes sweeping floors can give you an understanding of kind of the baseline of how some of that stuff comes together and the timelines that need to be followed. And the company I used to work for, when they had folks going through their real estate classes before they were licensed professionals, they would have them out on the job sites cleaning, which I think served a pretty good role in helping them understand how the construction process worked and how everything came together.
Kaylin?
Yeah, so we haven't hired a high school students yet, but we would definitely look to. But the internship we thought would just be through the summer ended up continuing, and he's really he's diving in and taking on Learning Builder Trend, which is a program that we kind of keep the schedules and the selections and warranty items. He's just owning a lot more than I expected, and I feel like he's getting really good real life experience of what it would look like to be a builder, which is really cool to see him blossom in that role. And to be honest, I think we hired him, we thought same thing, like move some sprinklers and deliver a couple things. And it's really, if you're willing to dive in, there's so much work to, and opportunities and to learn. And I think most of us out there are more than willing to start training you even at a young age.
No, thank you. I think that that's sometimes a misconception. And so thank you for that advice. I love that.
Here's one for you that they'll probably want to know is how much do you pay an hour for those summer help jobs?
So when we bring high schoolers on, we will typically run them between $14 and $16 an hour. A lot of it depends on what hours they can be around, and do they have a valid driver's license, or do I need to have somebody driving them around? So I think the highest paid high school kid that we had, I think we paid him $17 an hour for that summer.
I believe we're paying $20 an hour for our college internship.
Which is pretty awesome.
Yes, it is.
So something kind of going off of what Jill said too, is just like how they can, get out there and find those things would be, probably ask questions even within their own high school. Some of them might have access to academies like Central Campus and the Skilled Trades Academy, or some might have access to DMAC. Some might have programs that run through their FFA, or even do a student built house program where they can get some of that training and figure that stuff out. But I would also suggest that they do something like that. But in essence of trying to wrap things up, I'm going to ask each of you kind of just, what would you do to encourage, the next generation of our workforce to get involved? And then, what would you do differently, maybe even in your path to get where you are today, if anything? Whoever wants to go first.
Chris, you go.
To pick up on the last piece of that first, I think the only thing that I would have done differently is probably, to be real honest, I would have skipped over the college and just jumped right in. Spent a little more time maybe picking up some framing, spent a little more time working for a multitude of trades as opposed to just the one that I cut my teeth with, pouring concrete. And I think that's a prime road to go down if you're interested in getting into this line of work. The biggest piece of advice that I could offer was just do as much as you can, as many different places as you can with a lot of those trades contractors. Again, framing, concrete. If you can get in, be a plumbing apprentice. If you can get in, even if it's just pulling wire, not making up any connections, but just pulling the wire for an electrician's company, however many of those different pieces you can go through, that is a huge level of experience, even if it's just for a few months, that a potential future employer could be looking at. I know that I would take that above almost any and all else, a person that had experience across a multitude of different industries, trying to come and run jobs for us.
Galen, what about you?
My advice would just to reach out to people reach out and find different mentors that you can ask questions to, real life people that, hear their story, ask advice on how to get involved or how to get more knowledge or how to get connected. I think you would be really surprised how many people want to help and want people in our industry. And it's definitely a great time right now to reach out and ask to get a lot of, like Chris said, some experience over here, some experience over there. I think there's a lot of people that would be more than willing to let you learn. So,
Dan?
I would add on top of that a little bit. When you're asking those questions, really make sure you understand the answer and you understand why. So we can't all become licensed plumbers or heating contractors, but ask them why. When they say, well, I can't run that over there, I can't go this way, I can't do that. Try to understand why that is. And this really is relatable to no matter what your career is. Don't be afraid to just continue. I would say that a lot of people feel like they're afraid to look dumb by asking questions. And that is absolutely the opposite from our perspective as business owners. We want new employees, whether they're kids or adults, it doesn't matter. We want people to know what we're doing and why. And so the secret is that it actually builds their ego a little bit. So when you ask Jill questions, Jill's like, Jill's now the authority. So she feels that's really cool, right? These kids want to know, but then on the same time, you're getting that payback. So ask them and understand. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, but also absolutely you have to learn from those mistakes. You can't make them twice. You need to know and correct that. Sometimes it might be tens of thousands of dollars. You don't know what that is. So learn from those mistakes you made. And you're going to do that by asking those questions and understanding what's behind that. I don't know that I would change my path. I have a very fulfilling career, and like I said, I've done this. When you take a bare piece of ground and a tornado comes through Iowa, and you know that you built something that they take refuge in, and they protect their family in the home that you built for them, there's a lot of satisfaction there. There's a lot of gratitude that comes from those people. And I love our industry. I love what I do, and I wouldn't look back or trade for anything.
Awesome. Thank you all for being part of this. And I will do a shameless plug just for everybody. And then Jill, we have access to over 600 member companies. So if you're somebody that's looking for, to do job site, 700 member companies, we have access to, anything from home builders to land developers to interior designers. If you want to, job site visits or mentorships or summer jobs or whatever, you can reach out to me or Dan or Kaylin or Chris anytime, or Jill, and we will do our best to get you connected to those companies.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kaylin, Dan, Chris, Brandon, for moderating. Great discussion today, but thank you so much for your time and expertise. And for those who are tuning in and listening to this, as you can tell, we are all open to furthering this discussion with you. So please reach out to any of us, or reach out to me, since my name's usually on these recordings, and I can get you in touch with the professionals on the call today. So thank you again for everybody being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.